Picture this. You're sitting at a school desk, one of those old-fashioned ones with the little writing surface attached to the right side, and everyone around you is writing comfortably, elbow resting perfectly, pen gliding across the page. But you're twisted like a pretzel, wrist curled around at an unnatural angle, ink smearing across the side of your hand like you just lost a fight with a ballpoint pen. Sound familiar? If you're left-handed, you probably just felt that in your soul. But here's the thing, and this is what I really want to talk to you about today. Being left-handed is so much more than a minor inconvenience with spiral notebooks and scissors. There is something genuinely fascinating happening inside the brain of a left-handed person. And the psychology behind it rewrites everything you thought you knew about handedness, personality, and the way certain minds are wired to experience the world. Let's start with the basics, because even this is more interesting than you'd expect. Only about 10% of the world's population is left-handed. 10%. That number has stayed surprisingly consistent across cultures, across centuries, even across ancient cave paintings where researchers could tell which hand people preferred by the angle of the artwork. For thousands of years, across wildly different civilizations, roughly 1 in 10 humans has been reaching for things with their left hand. That's not random noise, that's a signal. Something is being preserved here, and science is still trying to figure out exactly what. Now, your brain. Let's talk about your brain, because this is where it gets truly wild. In most right-handed people, the left hemisphere of the brain handles language, logic, and sequential thinking. It's dominant, organized, in charge. But in left-handed people, that dominance is far less predictable. Around 30% of lefties are right hemisphere dominant, and a significant portion have language and spatial processing distributed more evenly across both hemispheres. What does that mean in plain English? It means the left-handed brain is often more bilaterally connected, both sides talking to each other more fluidly, more collaboratively. Think of it like a house where most people only use one wing, but lefties tend to wander freely between both. And researchers believe this bilateral connectivity might be exactly why left-handers show up disproportionately in creative fields. Architecture, music, visual arts, writing, the list of famously left-handed creatives is almost comically long. Da Vinci, Michelangelo, Jimi Hendrix, Paul McCartney. There's a reason this pattern keeps appearing, and it likely traces back to that freer, less rigid communication between the brain's two hemispheres. When your brain doesn't strictly partition tasks to one side, you get a kind of cognitive flexibility, an ability to make unexpected connections that can feel a lot like creativity from the outside. But it's not just creativity. Studies have also found that left-handed individuals tend to score higher on divergent thinking. That's the ability to generate many different solutions to an open-ended problem, rather than converging on a single correct answer. If you're a lefty who has always felt like your mind moves in a slightly different direction than everyone else's, that's not your imagination. Your brain is, quite literally, doing something a little different. Here's where it gets emotionally interesting, though, because there's another side to this story, and it's one that doesn't get talked about nearly enough. Growing up left-handed in a right-handed world is a quiet, cumulative experience of adaptation. Every tool, every desk, every handshake, every instruction to use your right hand, it adds up. Psychologists have noted that left-handers often develop higher than average adaptive skills simply because they have had to. They've had to figure out workarounds, reinterpret instructions, and build their own methods from childhood. In a strange way, the friction of living in a world not designed for you can become a training ground for resilience and creative problem-solving. Not because struggle is romantic, it isn't, but because the brain adapts to its environment, and a brain that has had to adopt tends to become very good at adopting. There is also some compelling research around emotional processing. A study published in the journal Neuropsychology found that left-handers may be more reactive to negative emotional stimuli than right-handers, potentially because of how emotional regulation is distributed across their brain hemispheres. This doesn't mean left-handed people are more anxious or neurotic, not at all, but it might explain why many lefties describe themselves as more emotionally sensitive, more attuned to the emotional temperature of a room, more likely to notice things that others walk right past. That sensitivity, when understood and channeled, isn't a weakness, it's a form of perception. And there's something almost poetic about that, isn't there? The same brain that picks up on emotional undercurrents, that generates divergent solutions, that freely communicates across hemispheres, that brain also smears ink across its hand every time it signs a birthday card. That brain grew up quietly adapting to a world that kept handing it right-handed scissors. There is something deeply human about that combination of gift and inconvenience, of being wired in a way that is both powerful and quietly exhausting. So if you're left-handed, I want you to sit with something for a moment. The world wasn't built for you, and you figured it out anyway, not because it was easy, but because your brain is genuinely exceptional at adaptation, at connection, at thinking sideways when everyone else is thinking straight. That's not a consolation prize, that's a cognitive signature, and the research is only beginning to understand how deep that goes. If you're right-handed and you're still here, first of all, thank you for the empathy. And second, ask yourself how many of the most original thinkers in your life reach for things with their left hand. You might be surprised. I'd love to know, are you left-handed? Does any of this resonate with how you experience your own thinking or creativity? Drop it in the comments. And if this kind of deep dive into the psychology of everyday human behavior is what you're here for, you're in exactly the right place. I'll see you in the next one.